Steam Next Fest returns, and I've been playing a wonderful smattering of demos of upcoming releases. No guarantee that these demos will be available after the festival ends, you know the drill, so let's get on with the games already. Windblown is an isometric hack-and-slash roguelike made by Motion Twin. Motion Twin being best known for previously making Dead Cells, so they bring a certain pedigree to quite a crowded genre. In the game, you pick one of several cute animal creatures to play as. Then, you're tasked with navigating a giant tornado in the sky known as the Vortex, which you access by firing yourself out of a cannon. Inside are monsters, loot, equipment, the odd friendly face. If you know roguelikes, you do know what you're getting into here. But Windblown excels in its execution of all this. The way you move in the game is fast and zippy, with the dash taking you across areas effortlessly in a way that really pleases the brain to pull off. Then we start fighting, and it's surprising just how fast it all seemed to click for me. 2 weapons to use at any time, with big strong special moves for some if you hold the button. But you use different finishers with your other weapon at the end of combos, which are crazy strong. Add on some trinkets, powers in the forms of things like bombs, and it all forms quite a mesmerizing loop to fall into. Mesmerizing is probably the right word for the whole game. The soundtrack is gorgeous. Its visuals completely serene, and combined with the hypnotic way your character moves, I was immersed very fast. I didn't even really clock the world was a series of floating rocks in a void, which is a trope I kinda hate, because it didn't matter. It gripped me and it didn't let go, even after several deaths. I wanted to give it another shot, which is probably the best thing you can say about a roguelike. It felt endlessly replayable from the word go. In terms of the game's structure, it's mechanically laid out like Hades, though not with as much hot attractive people negging you, though maybe that's a taste thing? What I mean is the game will have you progress somewhat linearly through the biome, occasionally making choices to go to different rooms to get different rewards. Rewards you might take out of the dungeon when you inevitably die, and then use to improve your town to improve yourself. Even upgrades you find inside the dungeon smack a bit of Hades. Your shops and special rooms are standard affair for your modern roguelike, granted, but one of the key per run upgrades being boons, granting special powers bestowed upon you, not by gods, but spirits and memories of previous adventurers. Yes, this does seem exceedingly close now, replacing deities with cute animal folk. But I wouldn't call this a knockoff for 2 reasons. For one, it's a very well-polished game in its own right, but also because of its biggest feature, which was unfortunately not part of this demo: co-op. Yeah, the whole game can be played in 3-player co-op. Everyone choose a cute animal and mop the floor with the big bad enemies. If you can get a group together, I can see this being incredibly fun. Windblown is some fast, zippy entertainment, developers knowing what they want to do and doing it well. It's entering early access soon, on the 24th of October, and my time with it has already left me blown over. MiSide, at least I'm pretty sure that's how it's pronounced, is well, it's sorta complicated. I will say on concept alone, this game has my attention. This is Mita. Most of the game is going to be revolving around you and her. This game is not a life sim. You do not have to help Mita around the house. You do not have to help her prepare meals in her day. You do not have to play minigames to earn money so that you can buy things for Mita. You do not spend your time looking over her as she whispers lovely compliments and words of gratitude to you, the person she looks up to. That's because, 5 minutes into doing all of this, she does this. Welcome to the game world. You're here now. But don't worry, Mita is here alongside you. From here, the game takes a more narrative-focused approach, looking at the interactions between you and Mita, helping you learn more about her and how she lives when the world she's in is, well, it's a video game. It's all polygons and data. None of this is real, except you're here now. This is really cool and all, but how do I get back? Oh, Mita, don't be like that. I'll stay a little bit longer. The game sells this premise extremely effectively, with a lot of creative flourishes that surprised me. The developers put a lot of thought into making this virtual world feels like it works off video game logic, feeling unreal like a dream. I enjoyed little details like, when you're preparing carrots when it's still a life sim, you have to click and drag and it feels like you're doing this on a touchscreen, but later, when you're in the world and preparing carrots, you don't click at all, moving your mouse back and forth to simulate chopping instead. It's a neat touch that communicates you being present in the space in a way I appreciated. But I think the star of the game is the real highlight. After all, this is a narrative adventure, so Mita has to carry things somewhat. I can forgive some stiffness in the writing, as English isn't the developer's first language, but she is sweet and earnest talking to you, the player, and I have to admit to finding her a little charming at times. She's quite expressive in her animations, more so than I expected. You really get the feeling that she's been quite lonely in this game all by herself, only seeing us when we turn on the screen, and you know, that's a little sad. While things progress quite linearly, the game has us do several things like talking to her about the house, playing games with her, even sitting down to have meals together. So, all in all, this is quite an interesting little game about spending time... Where did that... What's going on? What? What is this? What's happening? How do I get out of here? How do I leave? Is there a way out? And you can even unlock new costumes to dress Mita up in. Isn't that nice? MiSide is coming out later this year. Mita is waiting for you. Pager is a first-person horror puzzle game made by Bilge Khan. The one-bit aesthetic is perhaps its most immediately striking features. YouTube compression might be unhappy with it on lower quality settings though, so I apologise in advance if this ends up looking like a Sims shower scene. In this game, you are in an office, and you keep receiving instructions on a pager. Like that. Or more useful messages. Like this. Your objective is to get to the next floor in this strange office complex you appear to be trapped in. There's no clue who you are, who's sending these messages, what this strange place even is, so we're gonna have to run with the messages. Okay, take the right corridor. Overall, I don't have too much to say on this game. It's very much a try it for yourself sort of affair. It's interesting, and very cheeky. It's quite abstract. The office we appear to be stuck in doesn't seem to have any purpose, doesn't seem to follow any laws, and our tasks are arbitrary and disconnected from reality sometimes. Sometimes I feel less like a human and more like an animal in a maze being trained. Why, if there was an author I could compare it to with a single word, I'd say the whole thing was quite Adams-esque. The narrator, or perhaps pager, being unreliable in its advice did remind me of stuff like the old Flash game Depict 1, where an omniscient helper NPC would flat out lie to you, and you had to work around what they said to succeed. I do like the art style too, which YouTube is probably butchering. It reminds me of the old first-person adventure game The Colony, whose simple graphics I've always had a fondness for, despite its limitations. Overall, Pager is intriguing. It reminds me of a lot of things, but it's also doing its own thing, and I like that. I'd love to hear more from it when it rings in later this year. Butcher's Creek is a first-person melee horror, and it comes to us from one David Szymanski, notable for Dusk, Iron Lung, Squirrel Stapler, and about half a dozen other games too. Inspired by the likes of Condemned and Manhunt, you play as just a normal guy, exploring everyday locations, on the hunt for perfectly legal videotapes. Unfortunately, the locals don't appreciate the company of strangers.
Hey, what are you doing here?
The crux of the game is the crunchy combat. Armed with improvised implements of bludgeoning, you're going to have to fight your way past many creepy cultists who'd prefer your brains battered. So it not only rings true to the game's stated influences, but also to David Szymanski's other work.
Kill the intruder.
If you've played his other games, parts of this game will be familiar. The lo-fi aesthetic, dark spooky environments, and ominous droning that piles dread on top of you like being underneath an ocean of blood. It's all there, and it's great. I also kind of like the fact the game uses lots of photo textures. When I loaded up, my brain told me this tree was a two-dimensional sprite, but no, 3D model with photo textures. It gives things an uncanny feel. You can never feel comfortable wherever you go because it's like your perception is skewed. The combat is the focus though, and while it's perhaps slower paced than some of the other melee brawlers on the market, it is satisfying. You get a sense of weight with every swing. The meaty sounds of connecting pipe with perp is satisfying enough to put a bloody smile on your face. And combat requires enough thought that if you're dicking around and not paying attention, you could end up dead. So you can swing your weapon, many weapons actually, and block enemy attacks. Or get the jump on them as they try to swing, which I seem to favour in this early slice. You can also throw your weapon at enemies. No one expects that, but that's exactly why it works every time. But also you have a kick, with the filthiest looking foot I've seen since Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Sure, you can kick enemies, but you can also kick objects. Even pick up small objects and then kick them at enemies, sometimes for devastating effect. You have a lot of options here, and it was fun to just replay some parts of the game and try different things. It speaks volumes that it's more dynamic and satisfying to pull off compared to, say, the Callisto Protocol's combat, despite having 1/1,000,000th of that game's budget. I also appreciated that there were avenues to explore, and very good reason to explore. Firstly is different weapons, who are not created equally. Woe be unto you who is stuck with a plank or a penknife. Also, you can collect VHS tapes, which you need to use to save. Or you can save them to open up secret doors filled with goodies. There's also the matter of recovering your health. As well as bad men bashing you, glass might be on the floor to cut up your stinky horrible feet. You can avoid it if you're paying attention, but if you do need to patch yourself up, enjoy your character's favourite pastime. Snuff photography. Yeah, you recover health by taking photos of murder sites you find. Murder sites you create, too. And providing other photos these guys took. He loves these photos. They give him energy. Of course, we can't be playing someone sane. This is a David Szymanski game. What's cool is you can use the camera to stun enemies, too. Neat. Butcher's Creek is a treat. It's dark and weird, but feels so good to play. According to the store page, too, it takes place in the same world as Squirrel Stapler and the Pony Factory. I have no idea how to respond to that information, but we can see for ourselves what that means when it's out on January 3rd, 2025. Oh sweet, the soap!
Hey, you're not allowed in here.
Secret Agent Wizard Boy and the International Crime Syndicate is an excellent title for a video game, one made by John and Evan Szymanski. Yes, they are related to David Szymanski. They're brothers, and in fact David is publishing this game. Isn't that nice? Rather than grim and spooky though, this one is fun and goofy, which the Szymanskis are also experienced with. Secret Agent Wizard Boy has you playing as a secret agent wizard boy who has to infiltrate a legally distinct wizarding school that's not covered in black mold to stop Grumblemort and the criminal conspiracy. How exactly do you do that? I don't know. You're the secret agent wizard boy. Aesthetically, this game is obviously reminiscent of the old Harry Potter tie-in games, but in terms of gameplay, this is an entirely different beast. I mean, sure, you can jump around and cast spells at a bunch of British children, just like when I was at school. But the whole game is a physics sandbox that is begging you to mess around with it. So you can cast basic force spells, essentially your flipendo. God, I can't believe I still remember that. That'll knock things around, knock students about too, which will annoy the prefects, so watch out. There are potions for quaffing, healing you or raising your max health, buffing your spells, turning you invisible, that sort of thing. You could go find them, but a real wizard boy will brew them himself. But there's also gadgets to use that you pick up and throw around like bounce pads and landmines. Some things you can find, other things you can get from a shop by collecting these funny-tasting party biscuits that are everywhere. Yeah, you know the ones. This is the game at its most basic level, and even this is fun. There's a ton of places to explore and secrets to uncover. You can talk to students to get hints or just funny, strange dialogue.
I am frog. Blop, blop, blop.
Some areas may pose a problem or a challenge to you, but often there are multiple solutions for how to get around it, and that's really where the game shines brightest, giving you absolute freedom to do what you want and solve problems however you want. In a lot of ways, this is basically an immersive sim, and one that's so entertaining because it feels like I'm being encouraged to break things. Getting a spell to control physics objects was cool, and really useful, but the real star was when I found one that let me duplicate anything. Clone ingredients, make as many potions as I want, clone people, you can go absolutely wild with it, and I was basically daring the game to crash at points. I don't even know what my objective was anymore. I just want to break things. Secret Agent Wizard Boy and the International Criminal Syndicate is more fun than a bag full of witches. It simply lays a bunch of tools out for you and lets you figure out the best way to find fun with them. Do the objective, or just mess around. The school is your oyster. And that's not all, because the game also has multiplayer. Multiple Secret Agent Wizard Boys causing havoc. What more could you want? The game doesn't have a release date yet, but I'd love to see what else can be conjured up when it's complete.
I am frog. Blop, blop, blop.
Thanks for watching this video. Progress has been really slow as of late, and every project has seemed very big, mostly due to a lot of real-life circumstances, but I had to get this out as normal. Hopefully I can come back to you with something new soon. Thanks as always to my patrons, whose generous support allows me to keep doing this. Patrons can ask questions and Q&A segments at the end of videos, which we'll get into right now. What's the most enjoyable part of making a video for you? Editing for sure. While I enjoy most aspects of production, nailing the flow and pacing of a video gives me a strange and unique dopamine hit. It's nice to see ideas I've thought about get actually made and executed in front of me. Also, I love sudden explosions. How was Megalopolis? Man, seeing that in a cinema gave me energy with how bad it was. It was boring, but I couldn't look away. It's both incomprehensible, but also incredibly simple. It has great actors reading the worst dialogue you've ever heard. It's the boomer equivalent of I'm 14 years old and this is deep. I'm 85 and I sold the vineyard to make this. Okay, that's all for now. Stay safe, and I'll see you next time.
So go back to the club.